Well, Chris Popper joined here by Mark Arnold at MDI High School for our final football coaches show of the year. A little bit earlier than what we had all hoped for sure, but the way the heel points worked out this year, MDI finished in 9th place, one game out of the playoffs. And Coach, it's been a great year. I mean, when you look back at it, when we first did our video back in the early week of August, right around August 10th, it time sure goes by quickly.
Yeah, I was thinking, you know, as we were getting set up here today, you know, we did an interview at 100 days that was the first time that we did an interview, and we had 100 days until the season began,
right.
And just how much has you know, that we've gone through, but how fast it's really gone it never ceases to amaze me how fast football season goes.
You know, when you go from 2-a-days to 1 day and then the game a week, I think I was trying to figure it out that there were, you know, 8 weeks of practice, or eight games in the season, roughly 40 practices, and then you've got the 2-a-days in the week before. There are about 75 practices in the season, but you're meeting with these boys, you know, every day basically of the season, from 2-a-days from the start, well, from the equipment handout. I mean, you have contact with them every day, and it becomes a family.
Oh yeah, definitely. Again, in this room, they eat every day. The majority of our team comes in here to eat every day for lunch during the school year. So unless we take a vacation, you know, I see these guys every single day, and even over the summer. I mean, summer is actually, we see them the least, but we still see them each week in the summer, and there's not a time year-round. You know, it's actually awkward. Like today we did our equipment hand-in.
Yeah.
And it's kind of awkward you get to those places where we say, you know, this is the end of something, but so they'll shake my hand or we'll seem like that, and then they'll go, but I'll see you tomorrow. But for some of them, that's really not the case. Our seniors will, you know, finish out their school year here, but they start to mature and they're taking care of scholarship stuff, you know, and end of the year, what am I doing? Where am I going to school? And their mind turns more than it has to things that are beyond high school, and so that gets a little bit harder as the year goes along, especially with that group.
Right. You know, you talk about the last game of the season against Belfast. I mean, I said when I wrote the story that MDI was playing with a chip on the shoulder the size of a 2x4, and there was something, you know, and I didn't mean to, but it came out. I said was playing for pride against the Lions. That really was your playoff game, and I mean, and certainly showed the Big 11 what the Trojans were all about.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I know that we'd talked about really going into that week at the beginning of the week that we didn't know what our destiny was going to be in terms of the playoffs. It wasn't 100% sure that we wouldn't make it, and actually it really came down to one game, really. We would have evidently made it if Hamden Academy had beaten Brewer. There were really 3 games that played into the point structure at the end for us. I think one of them was, what were the other 2? There were 2 other games.
Camden.
Yeah, Madomic and Camden, and then the Winslow Old Town game.
Right.
And both of those turned out in our favor, but we knew that we'd played Hamden earlier in the year, and we thought that they'd have a tough time with Brewer, and so we really didn't go into the week thinking about, you know, what can we do. What we really wanted to do was prove to ourselves, and we talked a lot about it with our players, how far we had come this year, how hard we had worked week in and week out. There wasn't anything we could do about the tough stretch that we had against the 4 top teams. You know, the teams that we played in that 4-game stretch turned out to be the first 4 place teams in the conference, and you know, that was really the way it was against John Baptist. We talked about it that week, and then, you know, going into the Belfast game, we talked about it more, and we really had a good week of practice. I felt really good, and you could see we'd found the right pieces, and they had learned what they needed to learn to improve and really kind of reach their full potential.
And no doubt, I mean, if the season were 2 weeks longer, I think MDI would be dangerous and would be in the playoffs.
Yeah, and, or we'd played maybe an opponent later in the season. Again, we had guys week in, week out that they were just getting the experience as football players to really do the job that we needed them to do on the field, and that takes time. I mean, I had talked to somebody this morning, and the hardest part is that we had kind of built a roadmap for these kids and a story that we wanted to kind of go by and that guided us throughout the season, and that was that if we could win 3 games, we thought we'd get into the playoffs. We knew that throughout the entire season, we had to work at getting new football players and young football players ready for the playoffs. And what was just disappointing is that story ended before they had a chance to kind of go through the process of maturing and then getting an opportunity to play some of those better teams.
Right. I mean, let's talk about one player, Elijah Joyce, I think ends up with about 1,500 yards. When the coaches get together for Offensive Player of the Year, he's going to be a hard player to overlook despite coming from a 3-win team.
Absolutely. I mean, it is sometimes hard, especially if you don't make the playoffs. We've gone back and forth in terms of when we go to the coaches meeting in the spring. Some coaches feel like the playoffs should really count as a part of how you consider those awards for the conference. And then we've had other coaches who really don't feel that way. And we actually will meet next Monday to do the all-conference voting, so we don't really get too far into the playoffs. We were going to meet this Monday, actually, but and that's when it had been originally scheduled, but there was a problem with the location for the meeting. And so we're meeting next Monday. There won't be a lot of the playoffs, that have gone by.
It'll be 1 week.
Right, that play into that voting consideration. But sometimes when you don't make the playoffs, I think, there are 3 teams that we haven't played, 4 teams actually, that we haven't played in the conference. So they don't really know anything about us.
Right.
But if you've played our team, what's very hard for me to say is I've at least seen all the teams in our conference on film as we scout them to play the teams that we do play. And it's pretty clear that the standout athlete in this conference is Elijah Joyce.
Right.
That's pretty clear this season.
Yeah. No question about it. As we come to the end of the season, I know that there are lots of people you want to thank.
Oh, absolutely. It's really hard to, I kind of made a list, and as I go through, I make this list so that I can write thank yous. But I think for some people, it's hard to understand how much goes into taking care of a football team. Whether it's just all the equipment or feeding kids or our travel, all of that, it's a bigger group of guys. They're moving with a lot of equipment. There are a lot of mouths to feed, hungry, bigger guys.
Yeah, it's not a 12-person basketball team.
No, it's not the same, And so, as I go through this and I think about who to thank, I mean, the list is long, and I'll start to write out thank yous to them, so I spent time over the weekend kind of making that list. And I would like to just go down through,
please.
Quickly. Number 1, my wife and my granddaughter, they traveled.
First, and good job there, because, Mark Shields, I get him off the couch all the time when I had to remind him. Yeah. And what about your wife? But, yeah.
Well, I mean, for me, that's not hard. My wife travels to every game, and our granddaughter comes along with her, and she's kind of grown up with me coaching here. My granddaughter's 13 now, and I've been here. This is my 11th season, and so she's been a part of what I enjoy about football. I always tell people that, win or lose, the best thing for me about a football game is my granddaughter comes down right after the game, and then I get to go see my wife, and we drive home together, and that's a tradition for me, and they certainly make those sacrifices, but more than sacrifices, I'm very fortunate that I have a family that has participated in a meaningful way with something that's important to me. Right. And so that means a ton to me. And with the energy that it takes in football, without that, it would be really hard to do. So, and then my assistant coaches. You know, I have a great staff here. We had most of the people back from when we worked with Coach Shields. Tony DeMuro, Chris McGuire, Ian Braun is still a volunteer coach for us and has helped out. You know, he does everything he possibly can to stay around the game. And then Brian Dion, we picked up again this year. He'd been here when I first came here as a coach. But all of those guys, they just do so much. They care about our kids so much and really make a difference in terms of, you know, we really think our program is special in what we do for kids long term, way beyond football. And that couldn't happen without those guys, because every single one of them cares about that as passionately as I do, as passionately as Coach Shields did. So I definitely want to thank them for that. Our players' parents, you know, when you think about, hey, that's why we're here. But sometimes, especially in this day and age, to let your child play football and to make sure, you know, we know that things are hectic and getting kids to practices.
Early mornings, late nights.
All of that,
yeah.
You know, and we know that that's hard. I know as a parent myself that that's a difficult thing to do. And it takes a real commitment. And sometimes, you know, you don't appreciate enough how much it really means that people give you their kids and trust you with them, and so we try to partner in the things that they want out of that.
And the other thing too is, I mean, where MDI high school serves such a large territory, I mean, these aren't parents that are typically just driving 10 minutes each way.
No.
I mean, it could be a half hour or 40-minute commute.
Yeah.
And if there are kids on Swans Island, it's a boat ride involved.
Yeah, and it's not, you know, just picking up kids. We have great support in terms of parents who, you know, feed our kids dinner, and they give other kids rides and work together on that.
But a great travel too.
Yeah.
I mean, going to all the away games.
Right, and not only traveling, but you think about, like, we ask them to come in the summer. You know, I got kids down lifting weights this afternoon that are going to need to get picked up from parents. And a lot of our kids, they're not just involved in our team. We really encourage them to be involved in multiple sports. So right. Those parents, they really make a sacrifice that they know is meaningful to their child, but it's still a big sacrifice. Yep. So I'm going to kind of go down through this list a little faster. We'll be here all night, but you know, I don't want to miss anybody. I wanted to thank you, definitely. I mean, the two people who kind of travel with us and are always with us at games are you, and then, you know, we have Walter, who comes along and takes photos, and his
photos that he takes, I mean, the way that he takes those photos and chronicles the kids' achievements and then makes them available to everyone. There's no other school that has someone like that to take professional photos and post them. That, I mean, I don't know when he sleeps, because he gets home before I do, and he's up way past I am to post those photos.
Yeah, I mean, together you both help tell stories for our kids, and those, you know, they get etched into those kids' minds, and they're the memories that they keep, the stories they'll tell to their kids and their families, and so that's such an important thing, and we're so fortunate. You know, I try to tell you as much as I can how much that means to us, but the people it really means a ton to and will for the rest of their life are those kids. Right. And so it's an important part of our program that we really appreciate. Our trainer, Dan, you know, I'm going to name a few people who are here at school. Our trainer, Dan Vibert, Brent Barker, who takes care of our fields. Both of those guys are working all the time for teams here and care about kids just like we do as coaches. And so I definitely want to give a shout out to them for all that they do. Generally, not just our parents for taking care of their kids and giving them to us, but we have a lot of them who do our dinners here. I'm not going to name them all individually. I'd miss somebody, and I'd hate that. But we have a big group, and this year, the one person I would like to say is I went early on to Susie Isaacs, who's Gilbert and Porter's mother, and I asked her, you know, it's not really something where I can coordinate meals for the team. Right. We walk off the field, and the kids need to get fed, and that has to fit in a schedule in a way that somebody else has to take care of that. And I mean, I really don't do any of that. I walk into and make sure the kids are there and they get fed, but I'm not taking care of any of that. And it takes a small army to feed the small group of guys we
absolutely.
have. But she's taking care of all of that, coordinating that, making sure, you know, what the meals are, getting other parents in line to do that. So I can't say how much I appreciate that. That going into a season, like when I think back in the spring, is like a number one concern as a coach, because it really plays into that family atmosphere, you know, feeding people and them sitting down and breaking bread together. That's such an important part of building our team, and that, you know, family feeling that we care about, that it's just something I really, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate her doing, and all the parents and what they've done for us. Jack Merrill, who does our stats, I just entered in our Week 8 stats. He's there on the sidelines with us too. Is a critical component for us. Missy Leland, who's our cheerleaders coach, our entire cheerleading squad are there to support us at games. We love that. Our band, Michael Remy and our band out there. I mean,
just, they make a huge difference.
Just the fantastic. You know, I think about, like, I hear them play and I'm like, that's like a college band playing. You know, we're so lucky to have them. Yeah. We go some places and they're, you know, whatever, they're resources, but we have great resources, great participation in those programs, and just that same expectation of excellence. And that rubs off on our kids.
Oh,
you know?
Absolutely.
So our maintenance guy, the whole maintenance team, but Butch Bracey, you know, if it's getting buses ready or just making sure all the locker rooms are cleaned up after guys coming in from a muddy field. All of that takes a ton of work. So Scott Hangler, who helps us with our camp, you know, provides for that. And then Acadia, the Scudic camp. Yep. The people out there, Megan Mosier, that really kicks off our season in a special way. And they've, you know, she'll be the one in December to mail me back and go, we're really looking forward to having you out again. And that, in a way, starts really kicking off the next season for me. It's one of the first kind of formal things that we have to take care of for the next season. And so that's a special thing for the kids. Our AD, Bucky Dow, just the number of things that he takes care of for us, whether it's behind the scenes or at the games or getting the rep, you know,
game management is something that is overlooked and people don't realize, but there's so many moving parts that go into it, and Bunky makes it look effortless.
Right. He's always, you know, the number of times he stops in here just to check in with me, and that's so helpful when you don't have to chase other people down to take care of details like that. He's very detail-minded, and that's something I really appreciate, and it just really helps us as a program. I'm still looking for the name of the people. I've never seen them, but every night after we come back in from either a game here or on the road, there are cookies for our kids in the locker room.
So the cookie elves.
The cookie elves, I would like to thank them. I made a note to myself this weekend that I have to ask Coach Shields. They've been doing it for like 7 or 8 years for the team. I've never once met them. And so it is.
They live in
like
a tree.
They must be,
you know,
something like that.
They're cookie elves.
Their cookies are really good.
Well,
I'd also never had a cookie until like about 3 weeks ago. They had to go early. They were going to be gone for the weekend, and so they brought cookies in and left them, and I had to keep them stored here for like 2 days before they left. And when they told me that Coach Shields used to eat 4 of them, then I thought,
you felt it was your obligation.
It was my obligation that maybe that was good luck. So, and they are very good. I did stop after the John Bapps game. I actually because normally I leave and I go right home and upload film, but I actually stopped by and I got cookies for my granddaughter and myself. But
so the cookie elves.
The cookie elves. I'd like to thank them. Our game announcers, Lenny DeMuro, and then our timekeeper. You know, they are there working at the games, doing a great job. The boosters, people in our office, our team that works on the sidelines. You know, really, all of those, I just want to make sure to say there are so many components to pull off games and take care of a team of this size. that we really appreciate and need to function the way that we do. And the last people that I'd really like to thank is our AYS coaches, our AFL, our younger teams.
It's the future.
Yep, definitely. And we worked hard this year to have more events with them, to build a stronger relationship, and we started in that direction. We had a jamboree. It was a wonderful night in early August here. We had a practice where they came in at the beginning of the season and we all ate together. Our kids, you know, we have a group of kids that stop over.
If you're in the building, please call extension 3309.
That stop over on certain nights after practice, because the kids don't practice every night. Different teams practice on different nights, but they're right up on the same practice field.
Right.
And our kids would finish with practice and go over and spend some time with those kids. We had our.
It's that whole circle.
It is, and those coaches, you know, I look over there all the time and I see them supporting those kids in positive ways, and it's just, you know, it's critical. Kids have to have a good experience, enjoy themselves at that age, grow to love football, and we have a great group of guys working with those kids that are helping them to do that.
Yeah.
They seem to love it themselves, and it's certainly rubbing off on those kids, so I wanted to make sure to thank them. And then the last would be really the person who's directed and led the AYS, Tony McKim and Kyle McKim. That takes a ton of commitment, and not just for the football programs, but all of the sports programs, and getting kids involved in athletics, and loving sports, and kind of getting parents conditioned to bring in their kids, and them loving being a part of that too is such an important part to the success of our program for moving forward. So,
all right. It's always hard the end of the season to say goodbye. Again, we want to thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting us, both of us, and it's been a great season. We look forward to doing it again, 100 days out for the 2019-20 season. We'll get together, and who knows, we'll have more to chat about.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you. Thanks for watching. Check out all the other videos we have on the WDEA YouTube channel.